Okay, good morning. Morning and happy Sabbath to you on this special day where we are honouring mothers. Wasn't that a great display behind us? Now, I'm guessing, just a wild guess, that it was probably Sue who did this, judging by all the dog things, all the dog on there. Where is Sue? Was it you, Sue? Okay, it was. So, man, that was a lot of work. Had to put a rocking chair in the car and stand. Thank you very much for that. So, yeah, thanks, Sue, for that nice display about motherhood. Now, today, looking at mothers, but probably not a typical Mother's Day sermon. Today, often we like to say, really nice things about motherhood and things like that, which of course is true, but not everyone has a pleasant motherhood experience. And even people who have a good motherhood experience, there's often times when it's not so good, and those times are not always spoken about, and they're not always preached about. Now, I'm not going to be all dark or anything like that, but there are other aspects to motherhood that's probably worth looking at as well. Now, also, I've asked three people to speak about their mothers too, so that'll be good to hear from them. So it's not all going to be dark, but it is looking at another side of motherhood that perhaps isn't spoken about. And what I'm looking at, the theme I'm looking at, is being invisible. Being invisible. Okay, what's it like to be, for a mother, to be invisible? Okay, a sermon titled Invisible No More, Encounter with El Roi. What does it look like to be an invisible mum? My thoughts and feelings don't matter. Nobody would notice if I disappeared. People ignore parts of me and only focus on one part, being a mum. Other roles or parts of me are unacknowledged. Okay, this was a bit of a study on invisibility. As I say, it's not the full picture of motherhood, but it is part of the picture that mums experience. Okay, key themes that they found in this study of maternal invisibility. Okay, the first one was societal expectation of domestic labour. Okay, mothers do the childcare and housework but feel overlooked, while fathers get praised for minimal effort. So that was one aspect of maternal invisibility. Okay, social isolation, that was another factor of invisibility of mothers. Assumptions that mothers are unavailable due to childcare responsibilities lead to exclusion from social and professional opportunities. And so this can result in discrimination and career stagnation. So that's another aspect of social isolation. Yeah, that's right. Man, I think I'd be shutting my eyes if I was in the market, if I was a fish in the market. Okay, Invisible No More, Encounter with El Roi. We're looking at a woeful situation, family situation today, looking at a mother who is truly invisible and lacking in all agency. She's not consulted in any way about any decisions affecting her profoundly. Let's go to Genesis chapter 16, verses 1 to 6. Genesis chapter 16, verses 1 to 6. Okay, just have a look at verse 1 to begin with. Now Sarai, Abram's wife, had not been able to bear children for him, but she had an Egyptian servant named Hagar. So here we are introduced to the three people in this story. We're introduced to Abram. He's the man who'd been promised would be the father of a great nation. Many children. He'd had descendants to be like the stars of the sky, but no one so far. Okay, no one so far. Then we're introduced to Abram's wife Sarai, the woman who'd be the mother of many nations. However, the text says that so far she was not able to have a child, something which was of great shame in the society back then. And then we're introduced to Hagar, a nobody, an Egyptian servant, probably obtained when Abram was in Egypt, might have bought her or whatever at that particular time. It's now 10 years at least, or at least it was 10 years since they landed in Canaan, the promised land, and also where they were going to establish this great nation. What to do? What to do? Verses 2 and 3 of Genesis 16. So Sarai said to Abram, "The Lord has prevented me from having children. Go and sleep with my servant. Perhaps I can have children through her." And Abram agreed with Sarai's proposal. So Sarai, Abram's wife, took Hagar, the Egyptian servant, and gave her to Abram as a wife. This happened 10 years after Abram had settled in the land of Canaan. Rather interesting language that's used here. Sarai believes that God has prevented her from having a baby. But if she really believed that, she would have prayed to God for a baby. Okay, if you think God's stopping you, then you'd pray to God to unstop you having a child. However, that's not the solution. She proposes a very different solution to this problem. And that is to start a family through Hagar, the servant. And basically she would be a surrogate mother. Hagar would be the surrogate mother, but Sarai would actually be the legitimate mother and of the child that she has. The text says that perhaps I could have children through her. In the original language, it's a bit more interesting. The language actually says Sarai hoped to be built up by her. Sarai was actually looking for an increase in her status by having this child through Hagar. This was her motivation, her standing. Not, of course, having a child as well, but mainly to increase her standing. And so Hagar was reduced to being just a womb, truly invisible, no consultation. Sometimes mothers have other expectations to meet, not just their own. Expectations of family, in-laws, society, friends, all of these have an influence on motherhood as well. And so instead of trusting in God's promise, they devise their own plan that is not going to end well. Okay, let's go to verses 4 to 6. So Abram had sexual relations with Hagar, and she became pregnant. But when Hagar knew she was pregnant, she began to treat her mistress Sarai with contempt. Then Sarai said to Abram, "This is all your fault." It's always us blokes' fault, isn't it? "This is all your fault. I put my servant into your arms, but now that she's pregnant, she treats me with contempt. The Lord will show who's wrong, you or me." Abram replied, "Look, she is your servant, so deal with her as you see fit." Then Sarai treated Hagar so harshly that she finally ran away. It doesn't take long for the plan to unravel. Even before the child is born, there is tension. It was supposed to be that the child would bring the family together, but instead it tore it apart. Recriminations and bad behaviour on all sides. Hagar needling Sarai, her master. Abram, I'll do whatever. Not a very pleasant situation. And so Sarai oppresses and afflicts Hagar to such an extent that Hagar runs away. Now, I'm not taking sides in this mess, but I'll point out one thing. Hagar is the invisible one. In the whole dialogue between Abram and Sarai, Hagar's name is not even mentioned. She's referred to as that servant, just the servant. We only know her name because Moses wrote it in his narration. But when Abram and Sarai are talking, they never use her name, just servant. just a servant. Further, she was never consulted about anything affecting her. She had no say in being a servant of Sarai. She was just bought. She had no say in Abraham sleeping with her. And she had no say in the fact that the baby that would be born would not even be hers in the eyes of society, would in fact be Sarai's. And so, we're seeing a very different sort of a Mother's Day for Hagar and also for Sarai as well. Okay, before we go on to the next part, we'll have somebody else talking about their mum. This might be a bit difficult. Whose mum is that? Okay, well, he's walking, so you can probably guess. It's Peter Reid's mum. Okay, thank you, Peter. One way to get him back to church to come here instead of One Turner, get him to speak. Okay.
Yes, well, my uncle did the family tree, and my mum actually was a descendant from people from Ireland, Scotland and England, so more Irish background as well. So I guess that's where she gets her stubborn nature about her, like she was a very stubborn person. So there's a few people in this church know my mum, like Jenny McDougall. We lived across the road from Jenny, and Bruce Wilson, of course. They went to Greensboro as well. My mum was born in 1920s, so I can never work out which year because she couldn't either. I planned to give her a 70th birthday and she turned out to be 71, so she was really happy about that because she didn't want to have a 70th birthday. Brought up in a rural area in Preston, a very poor family. Her father was a gambler and quite often they had their furniture repossessed, and my grandmother really struggled with 2 daughters and 2 sons. My grandmother blamed herself for her other daughter's death. She took an abortion pill because she couldn't afford to have a kid. It didn't work out, and her daughter was born and later died of kidney problems. Blamed herself and blackmailed my mum to have her live with us for over 20 odd years. And living with my grandmother was not an easy feat. She was quite horrible, really. When she went to Coronella, she flipped. When she got older, she was a lovable person. Really played the guilt trip on my mum in sending to Coronella, and then she became the carpet bowls champion there and wouldn't come to visit. She couldn't leave Coronella. But Mum basically become an Adventist. My grandmother was converted in some sort of tent campground meeting sort of thing, and she became a very staunch Adventist, and she was very strict, as Jenny would know, and that caused a lot of conflict with me growing up and things like that. She was going to go to Cooranbong, and she fought against going there, and she actually gave her railway fare away so she wouldn't have to go. But eventually she got to Cooranbong, and she met up with a lady, Gloria, I can't remember her surname, and another lady, and the 3 of them terrorised college in the 40s and stuff. They were Mavis Eastwood, if anyone knows Mavis Eastwood, is a real character and real stirrer and what have you, and they had a lot of fun. She loved it there, absolutely adored it there, and they become really super close friends. Sadly, she went to, after college, she went to New Zealand to work as, pardon me, as an evangelist. While she was in New Zealand, she had conflict with one of the ministers there that falsely had a bad impression of my mum, and she went fired up and came back broken and disillusioned. And I guess if sometimes working for the church, it's not a happy place to be, basically. So sadly, that was the last time she worked for the church, really. So Basically, I was my mother's favourite son, and my father, Malcolm, my brother, was the favourite son with him. My personality is very similar with my mother, and my mother supported every harebrained activity that I come up with. And she got involved with it as well. She loved getting involved with my stupid plans, like picking the neighbours' plum trees and selling it to the local supermarket and things like that. And at one time we were in church together, and Gilbert Ganges, the minister, was talking about making kites. And my mum said, "I made you a kite when you were a kid." And I said, "Yes, Mum, but it didn't fly." "Yes, it did." "No, it didn't." "Yes, it did." "No, it didn't." Gilbert had to stop the sermon and say, "Would you two like to take it outside and have this?" So my mum actually had a really good sense of humour, basically, and she accepted everybody. I was at camp one time, there was a girl that came and said, "Your mum was so lovely to me." In the late 60s, she had a really short mini skirt on, and people made me feel uncomfortable, but your mum didn't. She accepted me. And I said, "God bless you, I love mini skirts." Chopper Reed went to Hawthorn, and I don't know why he had a learning disability. I have no idea whether they accept him there, but he developed this gang. One of them he sent over to punch Colin Crawford up because Colin was going out with a girl that he liked. But Colin Crawford's father was actually an ex-commando. And when Colin Crawford's father said to this guy, "What are you here?" "I'm here to punch your son up." Bad move. Another guy turned up at my mother's house that owed money from Chopper's gang, and these young guys were wanting to teach him a lesson or to hurt him. And Mum came out and just paid the guy's bill and let them go and more or less saved this guy. So my mum was really accepting. She was an amazing woman. I picked up 3 hippies from the street from street preaching one time. They were just lying on the floor. I wonder what Mum would think. And she just came out and was bubbly, made them a meal and made them feel welcome. She can make people feel welcome. And she had an extremely gift of the gab. My uncle's motorcycle broke down. And he knocked on the door and asked the people in the house if he could leave the motorcycle there while he got it repaired. As a result of that, my uncle Harold married Shirley, my mum's sister, and my dad later married. So 2 sisters married 2 brothers. They married at Preston Church, and the church put on a reception for them because they were too poor. They sort of paid for the reception. And I run drink drive programs. I run it at Preston Church, and sometimes I just go and sit in the church. It hasn't changed much, and I feel it's like a journey going back in time, sort of thing. So so basically, my auntie Shirley, they lived next door to each other in Preston. It was a lovely time. They just had a gate between the 2 houses, and we just lived in each other's houses. But sadly, Shirley passed away, and my uncle wasn't coping, so my cousin Ross, if anyone knows Ross, basically was my big brother up until the age of 11. And they moved in with us as well. And family life, we weren't rich, but gee, it was fun. My mum had a great sense of the ridiculous, a great sense of humour. We used to go camping every year. The Hastings had a block of land at Inverloch, and we had the whole block to ourselves. We used to have a tent there and go camping. We did a lot of things together as a family. So not having money, and my mum actually just didn't place any importance on money, basically. My dad had a quadruple bypass, and they said 1 more asthma attack in Victoria and you're gone. So Mum panicked and went up to live in New South Wales. So we sold our house to Pastor Mitchell in Nunawading for probably the same price as a block of land. My mum was furious. She was an entrepreneur and my dad wasn't. But they equally bought a house in Wahroonga off a minister for a ridiculous price as well. Dad worked as an accountant, and they had a staff a cutback, and they wanted him to unload trucks, and he couldn't do it with recovering from a quadruple bypass. They loved Cooranbong, so they bought a general store up in Cooranbong, right near the Swinging Bridge, if anyone knows the area. My dad's basically first week, he went and bought vegetables, sold out in a day, and made a loss of $80. And he was an accountant. So, but I actually lived by myself for 12 months, and I basically wasn't an Adventist, and I was against Adventism, and my mum was stubborn. She just basically wanted me to be an Adventist, and she was quite strict, so I was a bit of an embarrassment for her up in Cooranbong when I moved in, and I was more or less given the ultimatum either be an Adventist or leave home. So I left home, went to South Australia, just came back from South Australia, and I just found the house that I actually lived in. The guy there rescued me. I had no money at all. I had hair down to my bum with a naval jacket, and that was about it. Just a few belongings. So this guy took me in, and more or less it was like a father figure. So I was kind of estranged from my mum for a few years, and she kind of had to work out that you can't bring up children in a book. Ellen G. White says this. I was brought up, Ellen G. White says this. I don't think Ellen G. White said half the stuff my mum said, but it was just very strict and suffocating. So it was good for me just to get away for a while. But after we got reconciled, we had a very strong relationship. We were very close together. She developed in the 60s, 66, she developed rheumatoid arthritis, and it was just debilitating. She was like a tomboy, basically. They retired up at Orbost. I don't know why they retired there, but that was my Uncle Harold's idea to go up there, and they lived next door to each other, had a wonderful life up there. She just chopped wood, and they lived on the Snowy River, but health-wise they couldn't stay there, so they had to basically leave. I actually convinced my parents to move into my backyard in Eltham. We put a trailer up there, built a little bit of an ensuite, and they stayed there and absolutely loved it. I broke up in a 2-year relationship, and I was feeling miserable, and I used to sit Saturday night on the porch waiting for them to come home. Mum and Dad would go out to players that some people they knew at Cooranbong, and they'd play all night to 2, 3 in the morning. I'd sit on the doorstep and front door, and I'd think, "What time do you think this is? I'm worried sick. You could have run." I was about to ring the police, and my father goes, "Who do you think you are, the boss of me?" And I thought, "Yeah, I do think I'm the boss of you guys." When my dad passed away, I moved in with my mum for about a year because she had her rheumatoid arthritis was really debilitating. I organised her to go and visit a friend up at Ulladulla, and while she was gone, there was a carpenter from the church was going to come in and put a new kitchen in, touch doors, make it easy for her to operate. She heard about this and decided no, that wasn't going to happen. And she didn't want someone else to inherit the money that I spent. I had power of attorney, but I had no power over her at all. She was just, she couldn't sign the cheques, she couldn't use her hands, but I had to give her a TV set, I had to give her a microwave, I had to promise Coronella I'd get a cleaner in. The council cleaners, like $11 an hour. I came there one day and she's sitting there having a cup of tea and biscuits with this cleaner, and the lady said she won't let me clean. She was just really stubborn. I said to her, "Look, Mum, you can't wash yourself. I work as a nurse. I'll give you a shower. If I do an early shift in the hospital, I'll give you a shower in the afternoon. If I'm working afternoon, morning." She got all these gadgets together, made me watch her have a shower, and said, "You're dismissed." So eventually she had to go to Coronella, and when she was washing herself, she couldn't feel, but she had lumps in her breast, so she had to have a double mastectomy. kind of didn't really recover from that. She died shortly after that as well. But at Coronella, she loved it. And Coronella in the early days was really Adventist orientated. All her neighbours, all her people, she knew. The Winsenrees were next door. Marina Fordham, if anyone knows her, lived across the road, and they all looked after each other. They sort of came in and saw each other and kept an eye on her, and she just loved it there. She loved it because she knew everyone. It was a close-knit community, and she had a wonderful time there as well. I actually took a funeral to try to make it a celebration of her life, because she did. She could talk to anyone. If she was at the beach, I used to just plop her down 10, 15 minutes later, just move around so she wouldn't get baked. Come back and there's guys sitting on their eskies having beers, laughing their head off, telling jokes and things. So that was, she could just talk to anybody. So that was it. So I actually took the funeral at Greensborough Church, which she loved to death. And my parents had so many going away parties at Greensborough Church that one of them was so good they decided to stay. So basically I didn't know whether I could do it, but I wanted to make it a celebration of her life, and people were leaving the church laughing at some of the antics that she came up with as well. So that was my mum. She one reason I'm an Adventist is because of her values. And so that's it.
Now we know where you get the gift of the gab from, Peter. So, good on you. That's good. That's good. Thank you. So we left off with Sarai treating Hagar so badly that she runs away from home, compelled to run away. Let's go back to 16 and verse 7. In Genesis chapter 16, verse 7, the angel of the Lord found Hagar beside a spring of water in the wilderness along the road to Shur. Where do you go when your relationship goes pear-shaped? Where do you go? You go back home. And so that's where Hagar was going. She's on the road which leads back to Egypt, about 240 kilometres away. And she was on the road to go back home. It was there at a spring of water that Hagar had an encounter with the angel of the Lord. Even when she was running away, God knew where she was. God knew. She might have been invisible at home. She was not invisible to God. Verse 8. The angel said to her, Hagar, Sarai's servant, where have you come from and where are you going? Asking you a question. This is also the first time Hagar becomes visible. Someone actually talks to her using her name. With Abram and Sarai, her name is not used, just the servant. But here the angel, the first thing, says her name. Where are you going? Where have you come from and where are you going? Hagar only answers that she's running away from her mistress. Doesn't say where she's going. Verse 9, the angel of the Lord said to her, return to your mistress and submit to her authority. And this verse really needs a bit of special attention. Okay, this verse is descriptive, not prescriptive. Okay, it's describing what happened, not necessarily what should be done. If someone is in an abusive situation, they shouldn't be told or forced to go back to that abusive situation. But here, God obviously knew the end from the beginning, and so he said, go back to your mistress and submit to her. And submit to her. So as I say, this is descriptive, not prescriptive. Sometimes, unfortunately, people have been encouraged to go back to an abusive relationship, by well-meaning church people. But this is, we know a bit better now that this is not a good thing to do. But here, as I say, it did happen. We trust that God knew the best way, but it's not prescriptive that in every situation that's what should happen. Descriptive, not prescriptive. Verses 10 and 11. Then the angel added, I will give you more descendants than you can count. And the angel also said, you are now pregnant and will give birth to a son. You are to name him Ishmael, which means God hears, for the Lord has heard your cry of distress. When the command to go back to Abram is given, there's also some good things as well that is promised to her. She would also be, you are going to have more descendants than you can count. So she gets the same promise as Abram got. Okay, it wasn't Sarai who got that promise. It was Abram who received the promise. But here, the invisible one, Hagar, gets the same promise that was delivered to Abram. Abram was not present, but she gets this promise of having many descendants. And she's giving assurance that God hears her in her distress. God tells her she will have more descendants than you can count, the same promise given to Abram and that he would have. And we're told later in Genesis, she actually has 12 sons who will be make the 12 tribes of Israel. 12 tribes from Hagar as well. From where Sarai would. So very interesting, some of the parallels between these two. And not only that, God gives her the name of her child. Not going through Abram, but gives directly the name of the child to her, Ishmael, which means God hears. God hears. In this story of invisibility, God hears and God sees. In fact, the name literally means God hears. At long last, Hagar, who has been invisible, she realizes what has always been the case, that she was visible to God. Despite the circumstance, despite everything, she was still visible to God. She just didn't know it at the time. Verse 12. This son of yours will be a wild man, and as untamed as a wild donkey. He will raise his fist against everyone, and everyone will be against him. Yes, he will live in open hostility against all his relatives. Quite a prediction about the son that she would have. Okay, and this is a mixture of positive and negative. Yes, it's true. He'd be against everybody, against all his relatives. But it also means he wasn't going to be pushed around like his mum was pushed around in her life. He was not going to be pushed around. She might have been invisible. She might have been the one who was always at the whim of other people, her destiny. But not this man, Ishmael. Now, God is not dictating what Ishmael will be like. God knows the future and knows what sort of person that he would be. And as I said, he would go on to have 12 sons who would become 12 tribes. There's a lot of parallels between the two. Okay, this woman who was invisible, who was used by others. God had other plans for her. And those plans were just as equal as the son of promise. Isaac. Very interesting. Very interesting. And so we see this to this day. The Arabs and the Jews are still fighting. And they're half-brothers. They're half-brothers. Both the Jews and the Arabs have Abram as a father. But they have two different mothers. One mother Sarai of the Jews and one mother Hagar of the Arabs. And so this prediction, not that God willed it, but the prediction that God said about the son has certainly proved true even to this day. Even to this day, we still see what happened because of that decision of Abram and Sarai to have a child through Hagar. But Hagar was not invisible, maybe in the eyes of the world, but not in the eyes of God. Okay, the final person. Whose mother is this? Okay, it's Catherine's mum. Come on up, Catherine.
Good morning, church. I'd like to introduce you to my mum. Her name is Irene. She was born in 1931 in Hungary, in a village called Várpalota, which is actually in the western part of Hungary. And I'm pleased to tell you that she's still with us today at the age of 95, living in a retirement home. This is my mum when she was a little girl, about 6 or 7 years of age. I don't know where the photo was taken, maybe possibly in her garden back home before the war broke out. And she was the eldest of 3 sisters. She's now living in a retirement home, as I said, in Montrose. And she's very well cared for, and I'm very grateful that they're really great there and look after her. She has no pain and she's still able to walk with her walker, and she is doing really well, which is a real blessing to us. And if you ask any of the people that work there about my mum, they'll tell you that she's a lovely, kind, caring woman, never has a bad word to say about anyone. She's one of the loveliest people that they like to look after there. She never yells at them or complains, so they love that about her. This one shows 4 generations of us women. Yeah, my mum and myself and my daughter Karina and her little baby Aria. So 4 generations of women in the same family, so we're lucky to have that and to all be able to be together. So it was taken very recently, that photo. My mum has a strong faith, even though she's not a Seventh-day Adventist, but it was my mum who introduced me to the Lord Jesus and told me all about his precious sacrifice that he paid for my sins, and she gave me the deep love that I have for Jesus, so I have to thank her for that. She's always been a very godly woman. She was the eldest of 3 girls in her family, as I said, but the only one to come to Australia, and that tells you something about her and her courage. It must have been very difficult to get on a ship to come to Australia. Considering she never met my father, she only wrote letters to him before she came here, and so she could only stay in Australia under the condition that she married him, so it was a very big commitment to make. And yeah, as I said, they exchanged letters and talked a lot about their heritage, and I think that's what bonded them, because my dad's Hungarian as well. So that's their wedding photo there, mum and dad. So she has that up in her retirement home, which is really nice. I was the 3rd child in line. I had 2 older brothers and a younger sister. And from my earliest memories, mum has always been a really, really hard worker. Grew up on a 10-acre farm, and mum would go to the Croydon market, and I think someone else mentioned chooks in the cage. She'd get the chooks and bring them home and put them on the clothesline, cut their heads off, and we'd be there all plucking all the chicken feathers. So yeah, she was a very, very hard worker. She loved her garden, she loved roses, she had many rose bushes, and she really, really loved getting out into the garden. She had cows, so she used to milk a cow every morning, and yeah, that was a very busy time for her to bring up 4 children, and I've got to say sometimes we were little rat bags. We'd take off for the day, going up the bush, and she wouldn't even know where we were, but it was a very different life then, wasn't it? So yeah. Yeah, she worked really hard, and I think that really describes who she is. I've just got a couple more photos to show you. This was mum when she was about 18. This was taken in, I think in Germany. Yeah, it would have been Germany after the war. But yeah, she was about 18 years of age there, and this one was when she was about 20 years of age. Just, I don't know whether that was maybe coming when they had to stop coming out to Australia. Could have been. I'm not 100% sure on that one, but yeah, she's very gentle and soft and calm. She's not the sort of person that would yell and scream or panic or anything like that. She's a pretty good, cool-headed person. She doesn't draw attention to herself. She just lives a quiet life, and she's very strong and very consistent. And as I said, a very God-fearing woman. And this is just another one of her when she was young. When I was growing up, I saw her faith not so much in words, but more like in the way she acted and the way she treated people, the way she was very kind to people. She'd cook cakes for people and always be doing things to help other people. So yeah, she was very giving and she never complained. And I've got to say, living with my father wasn't always very easy because he had the Hungarian temper. So she just never complained, always did what she needed to get done. And I really admired that about her strength and her endurance. And as I said, she was only 11 when the war broke out in Hungary and they had to flee. She fled to Germany with her mum and her two younger sisters, and it must have been a very hard time with her. She was palmed off to another relative to live on a farm for a relative she'd never even met, and she had to work on her farm, and she stayed there for 6 years doing that. Hardly saw her mother during that time, which was really, really sad. But they managed to get through, and this was after the war, taken in Germany. And that's my mum, the one sitting up higher, and her mum and her younger sister, who actually the one on my left, she died of multiple sclerosis as well, and my daughter has MS as well. So, and that's her younger sister and her second husband. Yeah, sorry to say, Mum's father got bombed. When the war broke out, he stayed behind in Hungary to try and look after the house, and unfortunately it got bombed and he died as well. And so yeah, that was a terrible time for her really, but I admire the strength that she must have had going through all that. So I just want to simply say thank you to Mum and to honour her for everything that she's done for us. This last photo is just my wedding when I married Malcolm, my first husband. And yeah, there's Mum and my two older brothers. It's actually very sad for me to look at this photo, even though my wedding was happy, but my younger sister, the blonde one, she passed away, unfortunately. She committed suicide, so yeah, I feel sad when I look at that photo, but yeah, it was a lovely day, a lovely wedding, so I just wanted to say thank you to Mum.
Thank you, Catherine. We don't always live storybook lives, do we? Unfortunately. Okay, we'll wrap it up now. Verses 13 and 14, first of all. Going back to Hagar, and she's had that encounter and learned all about the son that she will have, a wild donkey of a man. Thereafter, Hagar used another name to refer to the Lord who had spoken to her. She said, "You are the God who sees me." She also said, "Have I truly seen the one who sees me?" So that well was named Bir Lahai Roi, which means well of the living one who sees me. It can still be found between Kadesh and Bered. So Hagar gave Abram a son, and Abram named him Ishmael, exactly as was told by the angel. Abram was 86 years old when Ishmael was born. Hagar was the one who was invisible, but she was visible to God, and so she gave God another name. Didn't realise you could give God names, names that are meaningful to you. Don't have to always use God. She gave the name El Roi, God sees me. God sees me. It appears nowhere else in the Bible. It's her personal name for God that she gave to him. She might have been invisible to the world, but not to God. And so, mums, your work is not invisible to God. Sometimes it seems like your work is invisible to those around you, but it's not invisible to God. No matter what the circumstances, God hears, God sees, and God loves. Mums might not receive. To all the mothers, grandmothers, great-grandmothers and other female caregivers, either by birth or by relationships, we say thank you. At this time, the deacons will give out a flower and a card to all of the mums that are here today. Thank you. We weren't expecting nearly as many people as we have today, so I hope there's enough go around. Okay, we'll have our closing hymn, Lead Them, My God, to Thee.